Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. My phone rang again, unknown number hammering like it owned me. I let it ring out, then opened the voicemail. A woman cleared her throat, measured and careful. "It's Maya. Mom wants to meet tomorrow." I pressed replay and felt my jaw lock. I'm Mark 33 and I already knew the trap. I typed no and deleted it before sending. My thumb hovered over call back, twitchy and stubborn. I called anyway, too late to pretend calm. Maya answered on the second ring, crisp and cool. "Tomorrow at 6, the diner near the hospital." No hello, no cushion, just coordinates and control. "What changed?" I asked, keeping my tone even. A pause, then a breath like a door closing. "Dad's ready to listen, don't be late." I stared at the clock and started pacing. I could show up and let them script me. Or I could bring proof and choose the timing. I unlocked the old folder on my phone. Buried receipts flashed like warning lights. I checked dates, cross-checked a few lines. Not enough to win a courtroom, enough to stand. I added 3 files to a separate folder. Labeled it, then locked it with a new code. My hand stopped shaking almost. The phone buzzed with a new text, Maya again. "Please don't make a scene, Mom's fragile." I tasted the old bait and put it down. Confirmed 6, I kept it short. I did not promise quiet. I threw on a jacket and walked to the corner. Not for air never fixed anything. I needed distance from the 4 walls. A bus rumbled by and broke my rhythm. I turned back with a plan forming. I booked a mediator's first slot for next week. Not to tell them, just to steady my own steps. Then I recorded a short note to myself. "Say only what you can prove, keep exit routes." I saved it and felt my shoulders drop a notch. I dialed my uncle, the only neutral voice left. He picked up with a grunt and a cough. "I'm meeting them tomorrow," I said, no fluff. He exhaled like he'd been holding a month. "Set your rules before you sit." "I'll pay my own check, I'll leave if cornered." "Good, wear shoes you can run in." He tried for a laugh that didn't land. "Thanks," I said, ending fast. I needed my head, not comfort. The evening stretched, but I didn't give it space. I packed a slim folder and a charger. No extras, no props, only what mattered. I slid the folder into my bag and paused. If they flipped the table, I'd still walk. A final text from Maya landed without ceremony. "Mom asked for no raised voices." I typed, then no lies at the table. She left it on read like always. Silence can be a leash. I stood in the doorway and rehearsed openings. "Thanks for inviting me" sounded like surrender. "State your goal for this meeting" felt cleaner. I practiced it until it lost heat. I wanted precision, not fireworks. The night kept trying to pull me backward. Old scenes flickered, but I blocked the reel. Only current facts, I reminded the mirror. I set 3 alarms for 5:30. If I overslept, they'd own the narrative. Lights off, but my mind stayed on high beam. I pictured the booth and everyone's hands. I pictured my own palms open, not clenched. I pictured the door and the path out. I slept in shards and kept one eye open. At dawn I brewed coffee and ignored the taste. I reviewed the folder once more, quick and clean. I added a simple timeline, 4 lines only. No arguments, only markers. I closed everything and breathed once. Before leaving, I typed one more message. To be clear, I won't discuss the past without proof. I sent it to the family group and muted notifications. No reply came, predictable and loud. I pocketed the phone and headed for the door. I paused on the threshold when my screen lit up. A new number, a short text, "He wants to talk too." No name attached, just that dangling hook. My stomach turned toward a face I didn't expect. Tomorrow had just changed shape. I pushed the door and scanned the booth, 4 faces, no smiles. Maya lifted 2 fingers like a referee, not a sister. Dad stared at the tabletop and kept his jaw locked. Mom's hands shook under the napkin, already a warning. I stayed standing until someone named the rules. Before anything, I set boundaries. I dropped into the seat. My food is separate, my exit stays open, no surprises. Maya's eyelids flickered, tiny strobe I had learned to read. Agreed, her mouth barely moved as she slid over. Start with your goal, I said, keeping my shoulders square. We want this family repaired. Mom's voice trembled and grabbed me. Then hold the truth steady and let it land. I waited. Dad folded his arms and exhaled through his nose. Maya laced her fingers and watched me like a puzzle. A shadow crossed the window and paused too long. The bell chimed again and a man stepped inside. He stood by the door and sent me a glance. My phone buzzed against my leg with a single vibration. Maya clicked her tongue once and broke eye contact. I didn't turn toward the newcomer yet. Who else is joining? I asked, catching Dad's flinch. No one we can't handle, Maya answered with practiced ease. Name him. I kept my tone level and the pressure rising. She stirred the air with her palm like she owned time. Eat first, she tried, bumping the meeting off course. We're here for repair, I slid the menu aside. That starts with accurate inputs and clean acknowledgements. Mom nodded too quickly and reached across, then stopped. I am listening, I said without offering her my hand. The man by the door took one careful step. Maya glanced left, there it was again, that twitch. All right, she adjusted her posture like a lawyer resetting. Some messages caused damage and we need context now. I let the quiet breathe while Dad's knuckles blanched. Context without evidence is just noise, I said, calm but edged. The man by the door moved closer and waited. Maya tapped her phone and unlocked something with her thumb. A folder appeared on her screen, titles stacked and neat. She angled the device toward me like a bargain chip. You will want to see these on mine. I brought my own record, I answered and kept the phone pocketed. Show me a single item you can authenticate now. Her jaw worked while Dad shifted in his seat. She tilted the screen again and highlighted a timestamp. Last summer, this thread pushed us past patience. I leaned forward and read 3 lines without touching anything. The phrasing carried her rhythm, not mine, tight and symmetrical. Open the header, I said and held her gaze. Her thumb hesitated, then moved, header collapsed with minimal detail. Full view, I said and waited through her silence. The man's reflection hovered in the glass behind her. I watched his shoulders align like he'd practiced this entrance. He finally stepped to the edge of our table. Maya kept her face still and let him stand there. Morning, his voice landed on the booth like a gavel. Mom flinched and glanced around as if cameras existed. Dad sat up straighter and planted a heavy look. I turned just enough to mark the stranger's features. He set a small drive on the table without flourish. Neutral copy, he said, and lifted his empty hands. Maya cut across fast with that brittle comb. No unauthorized material, she nudged the drive back. The stranger didn't move it again, just met my eyes. I was asked to verify the chain, not debate. His pulse jumped at his throat like a second hand. I looked at Mom. Do you accept third-party verification? She pressed her lips together and gave one slight nod. Dad stared at the drive like it might explode. Maya kept the header open and refused to blink. This is our meeting, she said and squared her shoulders. Our meeting needs a measuring stick or it folds. I picked up the drive and set it by my water. We use this or we pause and reschedule with a mediator. Dad rubbed his temple and focused on the stranger. What makes you neutral? He asked, voice low and tight. Different city, different employer, paper trail ready. No bravado, no extra sugar, just those 5 words. He slid a printed receipt across that showed date and hash. Maya tried to smile and couldn't finish it. Or we can keep arguing about versions, I said. Mom placed her palm flat until her shaking slowed. Let him load it, she whispered to no one specific. Maya breathed in once like she was underwater. Fine, she took back the phone and locked the screen. I felt the axis of the table tilt. The stranger connected the drive to a borrowed laptop. He typed with deliberate rhythm, then turned the screen. A directory opened with mirrored files and visible hashes. Pick any sample and compare headers line by line. Maya held still long enough for the room to creak. I chose a message labeled with a late-night timestamp. The header expanded and showed a route that never matched mine. I pointed once and waited for reaction instead of speeches. Dad leaned in and blinked twice without taking a breath. Maya opened her mouth, then closed it without defense. Keep going, I said and tapped a different file. The pattern repeated with a slight variation and the same flaw. Mom folded her hands like she was holding something heavy. The stranger watched my face instead of the screen. He knew which direction this was rolling. Maya rolled her wrist like loosening a cuff. Those are drafts I never sent, she said, barely audible. Drafts don't route through external servers, I answered evenly. Her eyes flashed toward Dad and back to center. I let the silence grind for a full heartbeat. A waitress hovered and then drifted away without interrupting. I took that as the universe telling us to decide. We keep this factual or we end this now. Dad's gaze finally carried a piece of fear and grit. Proceed, he said, and his fingers unclasped like a release. The stranger pulled up a log file and scrolled slow. Here are the edits and original stamps, he murmured. He stopped on a line where two usernames overlapped. Maya inhaled through her nose and held it. Mom turned her head like the angle might change things. I felt a cautious clarity replace the buzz under my skin. New rule, I said, keeping my tone almost conversational. No one interprets motive during this session, only action. Maya's jaw clicked, just a tiny crack in that armor. She nodded once, clipped and reluctant, but she nodded. The stranger highlighted a checksum and placed a print beside it. The numbers matched with brutal indifference and no room for spin. Dad lifted both hands and then let them fall flat. Mom whispered something I didn't catch and stayed very still. I pushed my chair back half an inch and reset my posture. Take a breath, I told myself under the table. I met each of their eyes and refused to blink. We are leaving with a shared record and agreed steps. Maya tilted her chin, like defying a camera she couldn't see. Define the steps, she said, and the word scraped. First, confirm which threads are authentic with the log as tiebreaker. Second, send a joint note that a review is underway. Third, schedule a mediated session within 7 days. Dad rubbed at his ring and stared at the list. Mom nodded twice too fast, like she feared losing momentum. Maya glanced at the clock and then at the door. Who else knows we are here? She asked without warmth. The stranger lifted one shoulder and went quiet. I kept my face open and my answer short. Enough that disappearing won't help anyone. We reviewed 3 more samples and the trend never budged. Maya held her spine straight but her eyes kept sliding. I did not gloat, I kept counting verifiable points. Dad stopped arguing and started writing on a napkin. It felt like stepping from mud onto a narrow beam. The waitress returned and hovered for orders we never placed. Water is fine, I said, and the table nodded in unison. She left and our silence felt earned for a moment. Then the stranger cleared his throat and risked a glance. There is one entry you should see before you adjourn. He opened a folder labeled with an early morning hour. A single outbound message glowed at the top of the list. The recipient line forced the air out of my lungs. Maya's thumb flexed like it wanted to smash the keyboard. Dad breathed a word that used to be my nickname. I held the table edge and rode the impulse to react. Freeze the screen, I said, needing the exact geometry. Mom whispered no and pressed her knuckles to her mouth. The line on the display waited like a tripwire. I knew whose address that was and why it mattered now. Freeze it, I tapped the screen and leaned in. The recipient line spelled my manager's address, letter for letter. Maya's hand drifted toward the laptop then stopped. Open the body, I said, steady but coiled. The subject line popped up like a flare. Concern regarding Mark's conduct, short, formal, strategic. I read the first sentence and felt my teeth grind. Attached incidents require action, the rest blurred hot. Verify integrity, I told the tech, chin lifted. He pulled the header into full view with 2 clicks. Signed and aligned, he murmured, eyes on the checksum. My pulse slowed, proof beats memory every time. Maya brushed hair behind her ear, buying seconds. That message lacked context, she kept her gaze on me. Context didn't send it, I answered, pointing to the stamp. Mom's fingers dug into her napkin like it might break. Who composed this? I kept the question narrow. Maya blinked once, then twice, calculating pathways. It went through my account by necessity, she said. I watched Dad's jaw hitch, small, dangerous shift. Check origin, I told the tech without looking away. He opened a log that traced the initial handoff. A familiar network name surfaced with sickening clarity. Dad swallowed hard and stared at his folded hands. Maya leaned closer, voice smoothing like ice on glass. Everyone here wanted structure, not harm, she tested the line. Structure does CC a boss, I cut in. Silence pooled while the cursor blinked like a metronome. I lifted my phone and typed one sentence. Requesting confirmation of receipt regarding flagged email. I sent it to my manager with the screenshot blurred. No dramatics, just a clean ping with a clock on it. Ground rule, I kept my tone even and unshaken. Acknowledge authorship or demonstrate spoof with evidence. Maya exhaled like she'd been underwater too long. I drafted, he finalized, her eyes flicked toward the door. I did not chase the pronoun yet, not today. Authorship stands unless you present a stronger chain. The tech highlighted the signing path and paused there. Chain favors a single user, he said, almost apologetic. Mom's voice found a thin runway and lifted. We need a next step that reduces damage now. Joint notice to my workplace, IN. Sweard without blinking. Clarifying a review and attaching this verification. Maya tried to counter and settled for a shrug. We can state uncertainty, she offered, palms barely open. We can state facts, I corrected, tapping the hashes. Dad's pen scratched a date like he needed something to hold. The laptop chimed with a new system alert. The tech minimized windows and frowned at a prompt. Hold, there's an outbound attempt from a secondary device. Maya's shoulders rose, then forced themselves down. Kill the sync, I said, and he pulled the cable. He disabled the adapter and took a measured breath. Safe, he added, eyes flicking between us. Maya adjusted her watch and stared past me. My phone buzzed hard enough to jump in my palm. A reply previewed on the lock screen with one line. Received that message and filed it last year. My throat tightened but my voice stayed clear. I opened it and scrolled for a single detail. It influenced a performance note, the email continued. No embellishment, only a date and a reference code. I let them see it and no more. Mom's shoulders caved a fraction, then squared again. We correct the record today, she whispered like a vow. Draft it together, I said, already building the outline. Maya's eyes hardened, then softened, then steadied into calculation. Terms, I raised a finger and counted each one. Admission of the external send, statement of independent review, timed follow-up. Add that we consulted a verifier, the tech suggested. We all looked at him and he didn't retreat. Maya pressed her lips, then nodded clockwise once. I want final wording before circulation, she insisted. You'll see every line, I answered, never breaking posture. Dad slid the napkin to the middle like a truce flag. I dictated the first sentence with no padding. The tech typed, fingers steady and anonymous. We iterated without adjectives and cut every hedge. Maya tweaked two verbs and watched my face for reaction. My phone vibrated again with a second message. HR requested a quick confirmation by return email. I composed 3 sentences that matched our draft exactly. Send, I said, and watched it launch. The tech saved the joint note to a neutral drive. I took a photo of the screen for redundancy. Mom touched my wrist and then pulled back quickly. One more thing, she whispered, eyes flicking to Maya. What else is pending? I asked, not looking away. Maya's tongue pressed her molar, a tell I recognized. There's a scheduled release to a mailing list, she admitted. My chair scraped sharp, involuntary, like a warning siren. When? I asked, already pulling my phone up. Tonight, she answered, voice barely above the hum. The tech checked a queued task and nodded once. I felt the floor tilt toward a clock I didn't set. Cancel and replace with the joint note. I kept my gaze flat so no one misread it. Maya entered a password and paused over the confirm. Promise no additional commentary, she said, fishing for leverage. No commentary, I agreed and tipped the laptop toward me. She hit confirm and the scheduled blast dissolved. The tech refreshed until the queue went empty. My phone lit again, unknown number, 5 words only. He's coming inside right now. I looked toward the door without moving my head. A shadow crossed the threshold and halted mid-stride. Maya's knuckles blanched around the edge of her seat. This was the name she hadn't said. He walked straight to our table and planted himself there. Maya slid an inch away like contact might burn. Dad's fingers tightened on the edge again. I waved the tech to keep the screen frozen. Name and role, I kept my voice level and direct. He looked at me first, then at Maya. I handled the export, I kept copies. His jaw worked once like he hated the taste. Maya's hands folded and unfolded, then stilled. You do not have permission for this delivery. He lifted a small envelope and set it down. I brought the source pulls unedited. I didn't touch it, I let the pause grow. Scope, I held his eyes while I asked. Account mirrors, device backups, server logs, he answered. Mom flinched like the list carried weight. Authenticate the envelope, I told the tech immediately. He tested the seal and scanned a code. Matches my intake record, he said without flourish. Maya stared through him like he was furniture. The newcomer took a breath that wasn't steady. I expected lawyers here, he muttered, then focused. I want a clean record today, nothing else. His shoulders squared like he was bracing. Open the top item, I instructed without sitting back. The tech unfolded one print and aligned it carefully. A timeline of edits stacked with firm timestamps. Maya tapped the table once and went still. Cross-check against our hashes, I said to the tech. He highlighted 2 lines and nodded with certainty. Alignment holds across the chain, he confirmed. Dad's eyes flicked to me in a tight plea. I leaned toward the newcomer and asked the real question. Who initiated the first send to my boss? He looked at Maya again and swallowed hard. She drafted the body, I rooted attachments. Maya's chin lifted like she refused gravity. That composite reflected ongoing concerns, she pushed. Concern doesn't include altered headers, I shot back. Mom whispered stop and gripped her wrist until color faded. The tech pulled another sheet and glanced at me. This one shows pre-send revisions with user IDs. He laid it flat and underlined 2 initials. Maya breathed through her nose and stared me down. Read the subject line aloud, I told the newcomer. He cleared his throat and followed the command. Urgent note regarding Mark's stability, he read. My heart knocked once, then settled into discipline. Why bring this now? I asked, not blinking. I lost my job because of that scheme, he replied. I want my name off anything dirty. He slid a thumb drive forward like a token. I raised a palm to stop any scramble. Ground rules still stand, I reminded the table. No interruptions, no spin, only verifiable steps. Maya stared at the drive like it might scream. Load it, I told the tech, and he moved. The contents populated with tidy directories and logs. He ran a quick check and displayed the summary. All files intact, no tampering, he said. New step, I added, feeling the momentum shift. We create a chain of custody for everything exchanged. Dad nodded once and wrote the time. Mom kept breathing slow to keep from breaking. Maya finally faced me with a practiced calm. What do you want in return for silence? I do not barter with truth, I answered. We issue corrections, then we set boundaries. The newcomer lifted a hand like asking permission. I can send a sworn statement by noon, he offered. Include tool versions and access points, I said. He typed a note into his phone and saved it. I pulled my own device and drafted 2 lines. To management, new evidence under review, joint notice attached. I flagged the tech and we matched phrasing. No emotion, only structure and timing. Maya leaned forward with a new tactic. Add that we regret any confusion, she pressed. Add that we regret inaccuracies, I countered cleanly. Dad's gaze flicked between us like a metronome. The tech opened the joint note and we edited. We swapped one verb that carried blame too loosely. We locked the final sentence and saved a PDF. Version 1 complete, he said and looked relieved. Distribution list, I prompted, keeping the tempo. Your manager and HR first, then the chain, he replied. I approved with a single nod and minimal breath. Mom touched her glass and then withdrew her hand. Maya's eyes hardened again and then faltered. Are you done punishing me? She asked, barely audible. We are correcting a record, not punishing you, I said. Consequences follow facts, not threats. The newcomer checked the doorway like he feared company. Someone else may show up if I linger, he warned. Who? I asked, already bracing for impact. He looked at Maya and then at the floor. Her contact at your workplace, he admitted softly. Maya's shoulders tightened like a pulled wire. We are done with surprises, I said sharply. Text them to stand down or meet outside. She pulled out her phone and stared at the screen. One quick message went out with 2 short lines. I watched her thumb hover over send again. She locked the device and met my stare. The tech dinged the table with a careful knuckle. Delivery succeeded, he announced, eyes on his laptop. Our joint notice hit all targets without bounce. He exhaled once like a diver reaching air. I turned to the newcomer and made a request. Forward your statement to the mediator's address. He blinked at the word and nodded quickly. He typed it out and showed the draft. Maya leaned back and tried a weary smile. This doesn't fix our house, she murmured. It fixes the floor so it stops collapsing, I answered. Walls come later with oversight. Dad pushed his chair a fraction from the table. Next session must be supervised, he declared. Mom nodded like she had been holding that line. I didn't soften, but I agreed. The tech packed the envelope with precise movements. He logged each item and captured 2 photos. He slid the inventory across for signatures. We signed without ceremony, but with intention. The newcomer tucked the copy into his pocket. Expect my affidavit within 2 hours, he promised. He extended a hand that shook slightly. I met it and held just long enough. He left in quick steps and didn't look back. I watched Maya track him with narrow eyes. She pressed her lips until they whitened. Her phone vibrated once, then twice. I lifted my gaze and reset the rules again. We are ending here before we spill more heat. Next meeting occurs with a neutral present, I added. Violation ends contact immediately. Maya gave one clipped nod and reached for her bag. Dad gathered the signed page like a lifeline. Mom stood slow and kept her chin up. The air felt thinner but clearer. I paid my part and kept the receipt. You cover the verifier in the room, I said. No one argued that point or tried to pivot. Maya booked it on her phone without a word. At the door I turned once and set the final marker. No more private calls, use email only now. I held each of their eyes for 1 beat. Then I stepped out, already planning the next move. I barely cleared the doorway when a man blocked me. Short sleeves, clipped tone, eyes fixed on my pocket. You sent a notice about workplace records, he didn't blink. Confirm your identity now, or we treat it as hostile. I angled my phone so only the banner showed. Proof is with counsel and a verifier, I answered. He studied my face instead of the screen. Walk with me to the corner, we talk there. I did not follow him into shadow or noise. 2 minutes here, I said, planting my feet. He weighed that and did the math fast. Your email goes to my department, I manage risk. Then you receive the correction, I countered, not moving. He checked his watch like the answer lived there. It hit our inbox, we want to confirm scope. Scope stays within the flagged threads until review ends. He frowned at the word ends and shifted weight. We might suspend access while we investigate this mess. You can reach me by email, not calls, I said. Anything urgent needs a written trail, starting now. He scanned the diner window and kept his voice low. Who else saw internal chatter linked to your name? Keep the focus on dated items, I replied. He tightened his jaw and stepped back half a pace. Expect a virtual meeting at 3 on the dot. He tapped a note and turned without farewell. I watched him melt into traffic like he belonged there. My chest eased, then tightened at the vibration in my pocket. A new message blinked from my landlord, short and clipped. Received anonymous complaint about unsafe behavior last month. My stomach dropped, then steadied under routine discipline. Send the file, I wrote and put the phone away. Maya came out with our parents halfway behind her. She kept her chin high like she wanted applause. We need to align before that meeting, she offered. I shook my head once and kept walking toward the corner. Email only, I reminded without breaking stride. My father opened his mouth, then shut it slow. My mother touched my sleeve and let go fast. Tonight, she breathed and I nodded without promise. I reached the bus stop and checked the schedule. Too many eyes, not enough exits, wrong choice now. I called a ride and stood where the camera saw me. The street pressed in and waited for another turn. My phone pulsed with the landlord's reply. 3 photos, a line accusing me of shouting. A timestamp that matched a day I was away. That report is false, I typed, then added proof. I forwarded the dining receipt and a location stamp. I attached the statement that started our paper trail. Please file this in the complaint folder, I wrote. Confirm receipt by noon, I expect closure. My ride pulled up and I slid in quickly. I asked for a parking space with locked rooms. The driver nodded and the city drifted by. I focused on the plan and tightened it again. Inside the workspace, I booked a small booth. I set my phone on airplane for 5 minutes. I breathed once, then reopened every alert. 3 more messages waited, each with a different edge. HR scheduled the 3 o'clock call with a lobby link. My manager added one question about scope of correction. He verifier sent a time-stamped inventory attachment. I replied to each with concise text, nothing extra. At 1:45, a new number flashed with urgency. Anonymous tip claims you threatened a family member today. I saw the trap before it snapped on my ankle. Forward the original note and time of report, I requested. 30 seconds later, a screenshot landed in my inbox. It showed a single sentence clipped from our meeting. Violation ends contact immediately, cropped and stripped of context. I typed 3 lines that restored the missing frame. This sentence sets boundaries in a supervised process, no threat. I attached the correction we had delivered earlier. I copied the verifier to keep the corridor lit. Flag this as resolved once logged, notify me when done. At 2:10, my uncle called with a gravel voice. Someone asked questions about your lease and your job. Keep everything in writing, I answered, keeping tempo high. I know, he said and hung up on his sigh. 2:20 brought the affidavit from our morning ally. Tool versions, access timestamps, direct chain from account to send. I scan each page and check the checksum again. I filed the lot under a folder labeled today. Maya's email hit at 2:30 with a plain subject. Edited items acknowledged, review ongoing, no further outreach. She added one line that begged for interpretation. I will participate in the next session without reservations. I read it twice and noticed one strange omission. The distribution list excluded an address I expected. I replied with a single sentence and a clock. Please include the church administrator, deliver by 2:40. She answered at 2:39 with the updated list. I watched for a bounce and saw none. Then my screen flooded with replies from people I knew. Short lines, cool phrases, each one careful as glass. At 2:45, the landlord closed the complaint. Report withdrawn by original caller, no action required. My jaw loosened and my hands finally stopped buzzing. I sent a simple thank you, then returned to business. 3 o'clock arrived with a tone I won't forget. I entered the lobby and checked my camera line. 2 icons glowed as my manager joined the room. HR followed with that controlled cadence I expect. State what changed since last review, the manager started. I laid out the new verification and distribution corrections. No history, no color, only timestamps and sources. HR asked for the document number and I provided it. Who else touched the material? HR continued, voice even. A third-party verifier and an independent exporter, I answered. Both will submit signed statements today, I added. The manager scratched a note and looked directly at me. Do you feel safe performing duties during review? I will perform limited tasks with risk controls today. All external communications go through written channels, I finished. Silence stretched, then HR nodded once and moved on. There is also a late-night mailer queued for tomorrow. My stomach kicked because that was new terrain. Source shows an external device with shared credentials. Not mine, I said and held my breath. Send us an authorization to purge pending items. Purge and lock, I replied, already drafting permission. I signed the form electronically and sent it through. Receipt confirmed, HR said and ended the call clean. I stared at my reflection and saw the shift happen. Not anger, not triumph, just spine where fear was. I wrote a short message to the mediator's office. Urgently confirm tomorrow at 9, participants are ready. A different vibration hit with a code red tone. A group text formed without my consent or ask. Maya, my parents, 2 unfamiliar numbers, 1 message. Family dinner tonight to celebrate progress, attendance required. I typed 3 words and a period after each. Not a celebration, then I added the rule. Send agendas in advance or it does not occur. My father responded with a single thumb and nothing else. Another ping arrived from the church administrator. Your correction reached us, notes adjusted, gossip halted. I did not expect the last 2 words, but there they were. I sent a brief thank you and archived the thread. The carking host knocked once and slid a note under. Time is up in 5 minutes, the handwriting read. I booked 1 more block and sent the payment. I needed privacy until dusk, then a clean exit. The verifier emailed again with a crisp line. Affidavit filed with counsel, copy attached, time-stamped. I downloaded it and cross-referenced the earlier index. Everything matched, even the device identifiers we flagged. Maya's name popped up with a fresh subject. Proposed language for the broader community corrections. She attached a draft that danced around ownership. I stripped it to 12 words and returned it fast. Earlier notices contained inaccuracies, a revi. You corrected them today. She responded with a period and no signature. I forwarded it to the list we agreed upon. Bounces came back from 2 addresses I did not recognize. I traced the source of those ghosts in a minute. They belonged to an old group that never included me. I asked for the archive and got stonewalled by an auto reply. Owner permission required, contact group steward for access. I texted my uncle and asked 1 question only. Who runs that loop? He called back instantly. Your sister built it after you moved, he answered. His breath carried anger I rarely hear from him. Do not engage the loop without neutral oversight, I warned. I never joined, he shot back, clipped and firm. Then keep distance and forward any spillover, I said. We both understood this was not over, not yet. A calendar invite hit with tomorrow's supervision slot. My pulse eased knowing it was finally scheduled. Attendance mandatory for all parties, the coordinator wrote. I flagged it high priority and locked it in place. The carking booth dimmed briefly as the system reset. That small flicker made me recheck my backups. I mirrored the entire folder to spare drive. Then I emailed a copy to my private archive. Another alert arrived, this one from the risk manager. Your cooperation is noted. Access remains provisional for now. He added 3 guardrails and a timeframe for updates. I replied with acceptance and a simple thanks. My mother sent a separate message outside the group. Proud of your restraint, she wrote, slow and careful. She added, we will follow the structure you designed. I stared at that line until my eyes got gritty. I typed a response and deleted it twice. I finally sent 5 words that I could stand. Follow through matters more than words. Then I silenced our thread for the night. At 6 sharp a new number dialed 3 times. It stopped, then a text appeared with a name. The workplace contact from earlier wanted a quick update. I answered with 2 sentences and attached the affidavit. He called again and I let it ring out. Then he texted a thumbs up and a calendar note. Tomorrow noon for a status pulse, his message read. I confirmed with 1 letter and returned to my screen. The landlord followed up with a final reassurance. Your file shows the complaint as baseless and closed. He added, let us know if another report arrives. I filed it and felt a knot loosen in my back. A winded message arrived from the morning exporter. Affidavit delivered, expect contact from counsel tonight. I replied with a concise acknowledgement and nothing more. I did not feed the adrenaline that wanted triumph. At 7:15 Maya's group message chimed again. Family dinner cancelled, preparation for tomorrow required. My father added a photo of the signed inventory. I saved it to the folder and labeled it with time. Then came the oddest note of the day. A former neighbor emailed a single paragraph, restrained and sharp. I received rumors last year and never shared them. Glad you're correcting the record, good luck. I thanked her and asked for the original mail. She forwarded it intact with routing still visible. The source matched our morning mapping with chilling precision. We had another example, same signature, same route. I sent it to the verifier and copied HR. Additional exhibit, I wrote short and neutral. He responded with a file number within 30 seconds. Logged under X07, linked to your case. The coworking staff knocked again with a kinder tone. Closing soon, the note read with a small arrow. I packed the essentials and wiped the desk surface. I left the room expecting another message before home. Outside, my phone buzzed with a voice memo request. Maya wanted a spoken acknowledgement that I received updates. I refused and wrote one simple line instead. Receipt confirmed by email, that will suffice. Halfway to the curb, the risk manager texted again. Cancel the noon pulse, move to end of day summary. I changed the calendar and replied with a yes. The shift felt like trust, small but real. A final message from my mother landed at last. Sleep, you did enough for one day. I read it twice and let the words float. Then I looked up and saw my manager across the street. He raised a hand and walked toward me slowly. I lifted mine and fought the urge to bolt. He stopped at conversational distance and searched my face. We are not enemies, he offered, quiet and steady. Then keep everything written, I said without moving closer. He nodded once and slid his hands into his pockets. Tomorrow will be procedural, he assured me. I expect outcomes, not pageantry, I answered, holding his eyes. He smiled without warmth and stepped back 2 paces. Fair, he turned toward the crosswalk and paused once. Delete nothing, preserve everything, we see the pattern now. He left me with that line and a half-formed bria. Th. I stood there until the traffic broke the moment. Then I walked to my building with my jaw unclenched. I unlocked the door and set the drive on the table. I did not sit, I sent one last email with 6 words. Tomorrow 9, supervised session, mandatory attendance. I hit send and let the silence take up space. I closed my eyes and felt my pulse slow. Tomorrow would decide whether this finally stopped or doubled. 9 sharp, I placed the drive on the table and folded my hands. The mediator raised a palm and nodded toward the recorder. We start now, her tone cut through any attempt at theater. Maya looked past me toward the door, already calculating. Agenda first, I slid a single page to the center. Verification, corrections, commitments, boundaries. Each word landed like a step. No detours, no emotional reruns, only actions. I kept my breathing even. My parents sat rigid as the mediator pressed record, then waited. The verifier connected and confirmed identity with the code phrase. Affidavit submitted, chain confirmed, no gaps, she stated and went still. The exporter joined next and offered a brief authentication line. The polls matched today's exhibit, all intact. Maya leaned forward and tried to claim framing rights. I want the language to avoid public embarrassment today. The mediator lifted a finger and met her eyes. Outcome, not optics, she said, then turned to me. I opened the folder and pointed to the summary grid. 7 items corrected, 2 items withdrawn, 1 pending review. Request acknowledgement of authorship for the HR thread specifically. Silence stretched just long enough to turn the screw. Maya rubbed her wrist and chose half a step. I initiated the draft and supervised routing under pressure. Pressure is not authorship, the mediator answered without blinking. Maya's lips tightened as my father looked away. Full sentence, I said, keeping my tone measured. She stared at the recorder like it might bite. I authored the HR thread and forwarded it externally. The words hung there heavy and cold. Next, I tapped the grid and circled a different line. The anonymous complaint to my landlord last month. Maya shifted, my mother inhaled and kept holding it. I want the source named on record. A long beat, then she opened her phone and scrolled. A contact flashed and she closed it fast. I placed the call after midnight, she admitted reluctantly. My neck got hot, my voice stayed steady. Restitution, I pushed a second sheet within reach. Fees for the verifier workspace, lost hours yesterday. This number stands unless the review expands. My father read the figure and swallowed too loudly. The mediator noted it and faced Maya directly. Agree or propose a counter within 10 minutes. No haggling after that window closes today. Maya nodded once like she'd taken a punch. Workplace status, I opened the email thread on the screen. Risk management requested a final statement before noon. Joint message goes now with admitted authorship attached. The mediator gestured, draft it together, keep verbs concrete. We built the 3 lines without adjectives or drift. Earlier notice contained inaccuracies, authored by Maya, corrected under verification. Distribution list includes management and HR, I added calmly. The mediator reviewed it and said one word, send. Maya hovered over the keyboard like heat radiated from it. She pressed send and set the device down. My mother exhaled and unclenched her fingers slowly. We watched the outbound confirmation ping, then go quiet. One more item, the verifier said through the speaker. An automated release was scheduled for next week. My jaw tightened as Maya's eyes flickered toward the wall. Location of that scheduler, the mediator asked crisply. External list under her admin account, the verifier answered. The mediator faced Maya again with unflinching patience. Cancel it in full and document the cancellation now. Maya typed pause, then typed again, shoulders rigid. I leaned forward without raising my voice or pulse. Include a lock to prevent new blasts without oversight. She ticked a box and confirmed the lockout step. The verifier acknowledged through the speaker, queue empty. The mediator reset the room and spoke like a surgeon. We address damage control beyond workplace and housing now. There is spillover into a community loop we identified. My father frowned as if hearing that for the first time. I placed a new slip in the exact center. A precise statement to that loop with tracked delivery. List each correction, no spin, no moralizing. My mother nodded quickly and kept her eyes low. Maya studied the wording like she could bend it. Add that rumors do not help, she suggested softly. Add nothing, I countered with a small shake. The mediator tapped the table once, keep it factual. We composed the lines and ran a final check. Sent, Maya announced, not proudly, not crushed. The verifier marked the tracking numbers in her ledger. Mirrored across recipients, she said and muted. The exporter cleared his throat and raised a finger. One additional disclosure before I disconnect today. We all looked at him and braced for impact. An access token was shared to a second device. Maya stiffened like a cable pulled past tolerance. Who used it? I asked, already bracing. He named a user with 3 initials, not mine. My father flinched, then stared at his hands. The mediator turned to him with quiet force. Were you involved in any transmissions or drafts? He shook his head hard, then stopped and swallowed. I reviewed one draft, I asked for changes. My mother covered her mouth and closed her eyes. I felt the room tilt, but my voice stayed even. State exactly which draft and what you requested. He squeezed his ring and forced the words out. The note to your manager needed firmer language, he muttered. Stronger phrasing around reliability, he added without lifting his gaze. The mediator wrote 2 lines and underlined them twice. Participatory role acknowledged, now addressed. I counted to 3 and kept the frame intact. Corrective step from you goes in writing today. Admission of involvement and endorsement of retraction, I said. He nodded once, I will submit before lunch. We paused long enough for a quiet recalibration. The mediator reset our path with one clean breath. Boundaries, she announced, clear, measurable, enforceable. I opened the last sheet and planted it firm. Quarterly family sessions with a neutral facilitator, I began. Written agendas due 48 hours before meetings. No private calls, email only, CC the mediator. Any breach triggers a 90-day cooling period. Maya stared at the list like it contained a cliff. Remove the cooling period, she attempted with a thin smile. No, I answered, and I didn't blink. My mother whispered a prayer and then went quiet. Financial redress structured over 6 months, I continued calmly. First payment within 72 hours with receipt. Late fees apply, forgiveness is not part of payment. The mediator's pen paused, then resumed. Maya rubbed her temple and nodded once. I will transfer the first installment by Friday. Include the verifier's fee in the initial tranche, I added. She inhaled deep, then nodded again. My phone buzzed with an email banner mid-sentence. HR acknowledged our joint message and removed the red note. Status normal pending final review, the line read. I set the phone face down and held my posture. The mediator pointed at me like a checkpoint flag. Your personal boundary outside these structures. I looked at each of them without softening. I reject forced holiday gatherings indefinitely. My mother winced but did not protest this time. The mediator wrote it and asked for acceptance. Maya signed the bottom of the boundary sheet first. My father followed with a slower, heavier hand. Last disclosure, the verifier returned unprompted through the speaker. A draft apology circulated between two addresses last night. Unofficial, unsigned, ready to deploy. Maya didn't breathe, I did. Replace it with today's facts, I said evenly. No apologies without full accountability, the mediator added. Maya drew a line through the draft and deleted it. Her jaw jumped, then settled. We moved to the last action of the session. An audio statement for HR to seal the corrections. Short, unambiguous, recorded in one take. The mediator counted us in and pointed. I confirm authorship and distribution of the flagged notice. I confirm cancellation of all scheduled outbound messages. I confirm participation in a supervised repair process. The recorder clicked, the room held its breath. The mediator closed the folder and faced me finally. Anything else before we adjourn? She asked softly. I looked at my family and felt something shift. Not comfort, not victory, just room. One last requirement, I said, voice clear and steady. No more guardian role assigned to Maya anywhere. No proxies, no back channel, no exceptions. The mediator logged it and nodded once. Maya stared at the table and flicked a thumbnail. I understand, she answered, flat but audible. My father glanced at me with a tremor of regret. My mother whispered thank you to the room or herself. We signed the session summary and stood together. Chairs scraped, a door opened, paper rustled like dry leaves. I gathered my documents and kept my hands from shaking. The mediator paused at the threshold and held my eye. You held the line, she said with a small nod. Hold it again if anyone tests it tomorrow. I nodded back and pocketed the drive carefully. Maya shifted like she wanted a final word, then stopped. In the hallway, my phone buzzed with 2 messages. Risk management cleared my sched. EULA flags for the week. The landlord forwarded the closure letter with a clean stamp. I exhaled once, then braced for whatever rang next. Maya approached with my parents a step behind her. I will route the first payment tonight, she offered. Also, the community post will go live at noon. I watched her hands, they were finally still. Good, I answered with no sugar and no blade. We meet again next month under the same structure. No pivots, no surprises, only work, I added. She nodded without looking away, a new habit. My parents hovered like they might reach for me. I kept one arm at my side and one on my bag. Use email for anything non-urgent, I said quietly. We will, my mother whispered and stepped back. The elevator took too long and gave me space. I checked the recorder file and sent it twice. One to council, one to the verifier's vault. I watched the progress bar crawl, then finish. Outside the building, the day pressed against my skin. Not relief, not dread, something colder and clearer. I scrolled to a draft labeled Never Send. I deleted it and felt nothing, then everything. A final vibration hit as I reached the curb. My manager confirmed the meeting at noon tomorrow. Procedural review only, his message read without flourish. I typed 3 words, I'll be ready. I waited for a bus I would not board. I called my uncle and gave him the headlines. No leaks, no speeches, just steps, I told him. He laughed once and sounded 10 years lighter. I walked without destination and kept the phone quiet. I counted blocks like they were beads on a wire. Somewhere behind me, a group laughed at nothing important. I let it pass and kept my pace even. At a crosswalk, I opened a new note. Keep the boundary, guard the channels, expect the test. I saved it and locked the screen without ceremony. Then I crossed and did not look back.